As I mentioned, many languages come in an exclusively written format. That includes today. And most languages in human history came only in the spoken format. What is the obvious problem with that? Think about it. When a language has a literary tradition, that means this. There is a method of communicating through writing and symbols. What's the advantage of that? Just think about it. What is the advantage of having a literary tradition? Survival, passing on ideas, traits, concepts, philosophy, history. It allows the literal ideas to be passed on. I'm going to tell you a quick story. There was a movie a long time ago called Black Robe. It was about the French when they originally came to the area that is today Quebec. So, in other words, the area in Canada that's just north of the Great Lakes. And their encounter with the Algonquin indigenous people. The Algonquins did not have a literary tradition. They did not have a written language, and of course the French did. And as the French were attempting to convert them to Catholicism, one of the things they were doing was exchanging languages. The French padres, the priests, were learning how to speak Algonquin. Simultaneously, many of the indigenous people were learning how to speak French so they could communicate with each other. And there comes a scene where they're traveling along. So in other words, the French padres, the priests, are traveling along with an indigenous group, Algonquins, and they stop someplace. And one of the priests begins to read the Bible to himself. And one of the leaders of the Algonquin came up to him, and asked him, "What are you doing?" And he said, "I'm reading." And of course, the indigenous man does not know what that means. And so the priest says to him, "Tell me something that nobody else knows." And so he tells him a little thing. And the priest writes it down on a piece of paper, folds it up, hands it to this indigenous leader, and says, "Go give this to Brother Jean over there." In other words, the other priest sitting over there. He brings it over to him. Brother Jean opens it up, looks at it, and reads it. And of course, the Algonquin thinks there's some kind of magic involved in this. And if you think about it, a literary tradition is, in a way, a form of magic, because it does allow you over long periods of time to pass on literal ideas and concepts and philosophy. Check this out. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, old school way of spelling that word, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. You know what that comes from? That comes from the Constitution. Probably mostly James Madison. What about this one? In Congress, July 4th, 1776, the unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America. When, in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bonds which have connected them to another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The Declaration of Independence, mostly written by Thomas Jefferson. We have the literal words. How about this one? 77 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that that nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. Abraham Lincoln and the Gettysburg Address. Incredible words. By the way, 80, one score is 80. So that's 80 years. So it's 87 years. That's what he's saying there. And again, we don't use that term very often anymore, but we have the literal words of Lincoln from the middle of the 1800s. Think of your favorite song or a line from a movie. It's incredible. These things written out, and we're able to pass this stuff on because of the written format. So, there have been tens of thousands of languages, maybe more, as I mentioned before, through time. But most have died out because of diminished populations that speak them, probably combined with larger, stronger languages overrunning them. And if you don't have a literary tradition, how do you pass your ideas, your concepts on? Think about how many things we have lost as human beings because other languages have died out, and as a result of that, their ideas have died out because they didn't have a written tradition. Well, even languages that have written traditions, as we've seen, can become extinct. And extinct languages are languages that no longer have native speakers. Things like Latin, Cornish, Gothic. Just think about how many Native American languages on the 2 American continents are gone. Their ideas are gone. And because they weren't written, everything about it just gets evaporated into thin air. It's a tragedy, really, if you think about it. So which languages today are thriving? Well, English, Spanish, Mandarin, Hindi, Arabic, all of these languages are thriving. But what happens in a society when the usage of its language begins to diminish? Language is something like religion that people hold very close to their personhood. It's a critically important component of who they are. And preserving languages is an important thing. In fact, there are universities, mostly American universities, that are going around through endowments and trying to preserve, both in the written and the spoken format, languages that are rapidly becoming extinct. And what they do is they have people who still speak those languages, and they record them speaking those languages so those languages do not go away. And we continue to have their knowledge with us forever.